Good morning, everyone, and welcome to everyone who is here, and welcome to everyone who will be joining us over the next few minutes. I'm Nick Schenkel from the West Lafayette Public Library, chair of the Indiana State Library Resource Sharing Committee, and I am delighted to invite all of you to an active participatory engagement today. Our thanks to the Indiana State Library, to Jake Spear in particular, our state librarian, for calling us together for this conference. And thank you to the Reciprocal Borrowing Committee members, all 16 or so of us, drawn from Indiana's many public, academic, special, and school libraries, as well as members of the state library staff, and to MCLS for their continued work with our committee as well. I'll hand it over to Nicole to Pam and to Nicole and to Jake certainly in just a minute, but I wanted to mention that resource sharing among Indiana public libraries has a decades-long history. I won't go into all of it here, but suffice to mention past efforts, many supported by the state library and by LSTA funds, including the ALSAs in COLSA, reciprocal borrowing agreements among public libraries, both regional and statewide, the ongoing sharing among the IU and Purdue campuses, as well as other large public libraries and academic institutions, ALI, the Academic Libraries of Indiana, and now Evergreen, and of course, Info Express. Our colleague and past chair of the Reciprocal Borrowing of the State Sharing Committee, Resource Sharing Committee of the State Library, Colette Mack, retired from Notre Dame after a career-long interest in and spur to resource sharing in our state, and her work helps point to the diversity of resource sharing across library types in Indiana. Finally, D2D, Discovery to Delivery, was originally an academic library enterprise, recognizing the importance of all types of libraries in resource sharing across Indiana. D2D worked with the state library not that many years ago to invite public, school, and special librarians to what was their conference, and the results have been spectacular in expanding the reach and the breadth of resource sharing. I'm very happy to turn the mic over to Jake Spear, our state librarian, and to his colleagues at the state library.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate it. That's a great intro. And I'll just quickly say I want to thank you to the Resource Sharing Committee and to Pam and MCLS for helping us put this together. And just a quick thank you to the whole Resource Sharing Committee in Indiana. I know it's been a very challenging year. And today, as Nick said, should be a good opportunity to have some dialogue about resource sharing and thinking about the future. But I know it's been tough for everyone across the board in the last year. So thank you for the work you've done and keeping the wheels moving as far as resource sharing going, and look forward to talking with you today. We just have a few quick updates from the state library before we move on to the meat of today's meeting. Wanted to mention that Inspire, we've been working on Inspire to improve it for our users. We've been working with EBSCO on updating the Inspire interface. Presently, there's some of the resources are broken up, K6 and 612, and we've been looking more at that and thinking that's a little too broad of a range. And so will be some changes to the homepage to make that so that it's K4, kindergarten through 4, 5 through 8, and then high school. And so it'll be on the homepage and also under the resources, the more broken out resources. And so we've been making those, and there'll be some tweaks to the website as well that you'll see. Those will be happening in May. And we'll be doing a webinar about those, or at least some trainings through the Professional Development Office about those changes. We're also, as part of our contract with EBSCO, they're the ones that provide the majority of the resources on Inspire. There's some marketing money, and so those pay for some of the things such as the pencils and pens and other things that we've done. And this time around, we're trying to be, because we have a lot of those in stock. If you need some, please get in touch with us. But with this time around, we're trying to be more targeted with some of the advertising and some of the marketing of Inspire, which is difficult when our budget is, around $45,000. So you can't really do a whole lot for the whole state with that amount of money. But what we are doing is working with a local marketing firm. It's Jarbo, and it's in Mooresville, and we know that they work with other public libraries in the state. So we're working with them to help create some email marketing campaign, and they're also creating some things that can be shared on social media, either Facebook or Instagram, so that libraries or schools or colleges can easily share that content. And then we also have created some email list specifically for the schools, because I think that's one area that we can do better in getting awareness about Inspire is in our high schools and elementary schools and middle schools in the state. And so I'll just quickly show one. Hold on just one second. Let me share my screen. Even after all this time, the sharing screen is still challenging, I think, for some, at least for me. Well, I'm having trouble seeing that. What I'll do though, we'll be, oh, here we go. Okay, never mind. I will, we'll send out things, but there have been some changes to the website, and there'll also be an email that goes out with some additional information about the Inspire marketing. But we're excited about that, and will be sent out soon. Also wanted to mention that there was John sent an email, John Weckleck, our communications person, to the listserv yesterday about the public library access card. Recently, we've updated the reporting form. It's more streamlined, and it's available in an Excel format versus a PDF, and that's available on the State Library's website. And also the card, the actual physical card that is issued, we've added an expiration date so that when someone is issuing a plaque card to a patron, they could put a date that's a year from when they're issuing it, because of course plaque cards expire after 1 year. So just wanted to mention those two changes to the Public Library Access Card program. And also wanted to mention the Public Library Certification Portal. We are creating a new portal or a website that the public librarians will use for renewals and other business for public library certification. Currently, the site is housed under the state licensing agency. And so we're bringing that internally into the state library, and the new site will have all the functions of the current site. And also so having it in-house will give us the flexibility to make changes going forward. So look for an announcement that will be in June about the new website for public library certification. Again, thank you all for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Brock for a few more state library updates.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole. I'm the resource sharing coordinator for the Indiana State Library. Most of you have probably seen my name in your emails, but it's nice to see you from my screen here. We wanted to talk just a little bit about trends in the Indiana State Library's resource sharing services since we last met in October as a resource sharing community. And one of the easiest ways to show that is taking a look at InfoExpress statistics. So I'm going to try to bring that up here. Can. Let's see. There we go. Are you guys seeing it now?
Screen looks good, Nicole.
Okay, good. It makes my stuff all go away. So I'm just getting situated here. Okay, so for InfoExpress, there's a kind of a lot going on here because it's a few years displayed, but the trend seems to be that everything kind of fell off a cliff last spring. And as is understandable with what was going on a year ago. And then we have kind of bounced back since then to something resembling normal. Pretty much everybody is back on InfoExpress and sharing things, but we have not quite hit those pre-pandemic levels. So that's pretty much the case for our other services, CERCS and Indiana Share, the two other ILL programs that we oversee here at the State Library. I'm not going to bring up all the stats for those because essentially it's the same story. Things went way down last spring when everyone was hunkering down at home. And as soon as things have opened back up, we have started sharing again, which is excellent. It's not quite, this moving around of physical items is not quite where it was prior to the pandemic. And it'll be interesting to see if it ever is, because we have all learn to be more comfortable with digital things, and there's a lot more going on in that space as well. So I'll be interested to hear what people have to say about that from their library experiences once we get into the discussion. And then I also wanted to briefly mention, if I can get this to advance, InfoExpress renewal. I sent out an email, I think it was last week, to everybody who is a current InfoExpress subscriber that renewal season is upon us. There's one change to the deadline this year. We're asking for renewals to be submitted by June 1st, which is about a month earlier than normal. That will help us with our budgeting and planning. And basically that just means you need to tell us a little bit sooner how many days you want to have and whether you plan to continue the days that you have, et cetera, by June 1st. Payments are still due on the normal schedule, and the school adjusted schedule is the same as it has been in previous years as well. If you did not get that email from me and you are an InfoExpress library, just shoot me a chat, shoot me an email, and we can get that sorted out. I know some people's contact information changes and we don't always know in time to send those emails out. That is really all I have for the state library update. I wanted to leave a little space here for questions before we move into our discussion in case anybody had a burning question about something resource sharing that we offer. And for right now, while we're in this main room, if you have a question, if you could just put it in the chat, it could get a little hairy in here with 130 people if we all start unmuting. So we'll try to do that in the chat. All right, seeing none. If you think of something while we're talking, you can always add that and we can get to it later on. So what we really want to focus on today is a conversation with our fellow library resource sharing friends all across the state. And I know I was inspired by the engaging virtual dialogues that MCLS has done over the last year or so. And so we kind of wanted to bring that energy to the resource sharing conversation and see if we can have a good dialogue about what's been working, what's not been working, what the future kind of looks like for us here in Indiana. So I'm so happy that Pam Seabolt from MCLS is here and has been helping us craft the dialogue questions, and she's going to kind of help us set the stage for what the rest of this experience today is going to look like. And so I'm going to turn that over to Pam.
Great, thank you. So we will be having discussions out in breakout rooms. So here in just a moment, we're going to send you out there. We're going to do an icebreaker as well. But we always like to start our conversations with some conversation agreements, just so we're all on the same page as we go out in the breakout rooms. So we're here to have a conversation where everyone participates and no one dominates. You don't need to be an expert. Draw on your own experiences. Whatever knowledge you have is yours, and that's what we want when you go to your discussions. Keep an open mind and listen to understand. Help keep the conversation on track. Use the chat in the main room and talk in the breakout rooms. And dogs, cats, children, and other distractions are perfectly fine. Things happen and that's okay. So, and most of all, we're just here to have fun today. We want to just come to a place where we have open conversation and good conversation. So if you all can agree to those conversation agreements, just give me a yes in chat, or you can give me a thumbs up emoji, whichever works for you. All right. Seeing lots of thumbs up and yeses in chat. Awesome. Great. Very excited for that. Okay. So just a couple of things about Zoom too while we're in here. Thank you all very much. So we will be out in breakout rooms. And yeah, Nicole, if you can go to the next. We will be out in breakout rooms today. So when we do send you out to the breakout room, you'll get a dialog box that will come up and it will just ask you to join your breakout room. If you click join, you'll be sent automatically out to the breakout room. If you're out there and you have any questions or something comes up and you need some help, there's a button that appears that says ask for help. Click that at any time. Someone will come out and try to help you with that. And then also when you're in your breakout room, the chat is specific to your breakout room and it's only for that breakout room. So if you would like to save your chat, if you take notes in chat or you add some things in chat while you're in your breakout room, you can click the little button that has 3 dots on it next to your chat box there, and you can click save chat and you'll be able to save your chat from that breakout room so that you have that conversation when you come back in. Or if you just want to save a record of the whole chat from the day, you can do that as well. So those are our main Zoom tips for how we're going to participate today. And I'm going to hand it back over to Nicole to do an icebreaker. Oh, you're muted, Nicole. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so before we head out to our rooms, we wanted to do just a little exercise to kind of get people warmed up and a little bit on the same page about what we are talking about in terms of resource sharing. So I'm going to switch what I'm sharing here really quickly. We're going to use another little tool to help us make a little word cloud. And now I have to find my chat back here. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Jen. Jen's posted it up in the chat for us. So we have a question. When we say resource sharing, what services do you think of? And we're going to use this tool called Mentimeter to display a word cloud of what we all think of. So to participate in this, you'll go to menti.com and use the code, and then you can fill in whatever comes to your mind when you think of resource sharing. Jen's got it in the chat, so you can copy and paste it, or it does work really well on phones if you have too much going on your screen already with Zoom. So we'll take a couple minutes to try to let that populate. We have all different kinds of libraries joining us today, so it's good to sort of see what's on everybody's mind. Looks like interlibrary loan is the winner in what people think about. Collaboration, I like that. Info Express. Someone said it's friendly. That's good. I'm trying to watch the number here to see if it keeps going up. I want everybody to be able to participate if they want to, but I know some people might not, so I don't want to sit on the screen and wait too long. But yeah, it's fun to see kind of what everybody has said. InfoExpress and interlibrary loans seem to be highly up there on what we're doing, but we also see things like document delivery and hard to find items. That's good. And articles. All right. I can share this out after the session too if people are interested in that. If you want to have it as like an inspiration for the discussion, you might want to take a screenshot really quick. I can leave it up here because it's going to go away when we go into the breakout rooms. So I'll leave it up there for another minute and then we can turn it over to Pam to introduce our first breakout topic.
All right.
Let me get the PowerPoint back up
PowerPoint
here.
All right, so we're going to pull up the PowerPoint that will have your scenario questions to consider for this first breakout room. Get it up here. So when that comes up, if you want to take a screenshot or a picture of it so that you have it when you go out, that would be great. We're also going to put it in chat right before you go out to the breakout room, so that will go out there with you, hopefully.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, awesome. So for our first breakout discussion, you'll have 15 minutes in your group, and we'd like for you to consider that this past year has brought many changes in how libraries share materials and resources with each other. It's been difficult to live in the uncertainty of not having absolute answers and pushing forward with the desire to continue to provide materials to those who need or want them. We've learned to be creative and to compromise where we could. So for instance, the Indiana Library supported a Return Anywhere initiative to help resources make their way back home when students scattered last spring. So in thinking back over the past year in terms of sharing materials and resources, think of an experience or an example of when resource sharing went well for you, for the library, or for the public. This could be an individual experience or a group of experiences that you've noticed over time, and could be something that you've experienced personally or something that you just heard about from others. So from that experience, what did you appreciate about it? What did you learn from the experience? What changes or shifts made the experience possible? So again, we'll post the question in chat. It looks like it's already there. You can take a screenshot of it. Once you're in your breakout rooms, quickly just introduce yourselves, choose a recorder or reporter who will take notes of your discussion. And that recorder and reporter will also share in chat in the main room after the breakout. So we'll just ask you to post in chat. And then we'll also call on some people verbally share a bit more from their discussions as well after your discussion. So again, you'll have 15 minutes and I'll hand it over to Jen to get the breakout rooms open. I think everybody should be back. So
All right.
if you were the recorder in your room, if you want to go ahead and share in chat the highlights of your discussion. All right, we're getting several coming in chat. That's awesome.
I'm having trouble keeping up. Heather was the first one I saw in the chat. Do you have the ability or interest in unmuting to just expand a little bit more or highlight what you guys talked
Yeah, I
about?
can do that. So our chat was mostly like, I don't think anyone had any horrible experiences with other. We were all really appreciative of everybody's like kindness in extending due dates. In my case, sometimes lots and lots of times. There were a lot of technology things that maybe hadn't been used before that ended up being really helpful. I know in my case, I was using like Google Meets with people on my campus more often, which had never occurred to me to do before. And that was really helpful with distance learners and people who weren't right in front of me so that they could kind of follow what I was doing. I know Barb had talked about they started doing no contact pickup. So they've got a specific area, check the books out, put them there. The person comes when they're ready, grabs them, and that people have liked that and they'll maybe continue doing that into the future, even past the pandemic. So a lot of little things that really ended up helping us through the year and finding tools that we had that were useful in the more difficult times.
Thank you. There's a lot. There's a lot going on in here. It sounded like there's a lot of things that worked really well. If Pam or Jen or somebody sees a comment that jumps out at you that we could unmute, just go ahead and chime in. Like I'm having a little bit of trouble keeping it straight.
Great. So Allison Davis, it looks like you put a comment in there a bit about home delivery and how successful that was. You want to talk about that a little bit? If you're able to.
Sorry, I just shoved my mouth full of goldfish. Hold on a second.
Okay. Sure. Perfect moment, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we just talked a little bit about home delivery and how a few of our libraries had done that and it's been really successful. We've done that here at Purdue, and I can't remember who said it now, but one of the librarians from a public library said that they've been doing that and it was very successful, and Purdue plans to continue doing that. I think that was sort of the general consensus of our discussion, was that we hope that a lot of the changes that people have made over the past year might continue because they seem to be, helpful towards accessibility initiatives, just generally helping out our patrons more. And we also appreciate other people being patient and coming together about renewals and stuff.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that in here. It seems to be echoed across the board, so that's awesome. Thank you, Allison. Felina Martinez, you said that you definitely seen an increase in sharing and people learning to be flexible. Do you want to talk a little bit more about those comments? If you're able to.
No, not particularly. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I didn't. I was just starting to type my notes over here when I needed to put them over here. We just talked about how what one person mentioned, oh, I'm sorry, I think I lost her, that people were more willing to be flexible. Like if they couldn't get the print book, then, or they couldn't get the ebook, then they were like, well, can I just get a couple chapters for this research or whatever? And I am so sorry that I didn't jot the name down of who said that, but I thought, oh yeah, that's right. Like that is something that was neat to see how accepting people were of the need to be creative in what we were doing for them. And then I think that, we also just kind of discussed quarantining and, things like that. That's about it.
Okay, great. Great. I love that. The flexibility of, what do you really need and how can we get that for you? I love that part. Okay. Tyler Munn, looks like from Bartholomew County, it looks like you had quite a lot in there from room 6. Do you want to unmute and talk a little bit? Okay, may not be able to, that's okay.
Yeah, the other one that jumped out for me was Robert Rothmeyer had mentioned his group talked about discovering like digital resources and stuff. I don't think we've mentioned that yet. If you want to talk a little bit more about that conversation.
That was made by a small public library. And I think often in those settings, the digital resources are not as used as, or as people don't know about them as well as they do in academic settings. So that was great to see. I can testify even from Illinois that my mother-in-law discovered digital resources at her small public library too during this period when she couldn't go to the library and pick up books as readily. And then on the academic side of that, there were 2 academic librarians in the room, and we spent a lot more time gathering resources and putting in PDFs and pushing them out to people, especially while the courier was down. And we even used mail to get things out to patrons or to bring things between libraries while the courier was down. So found we're resourceful in terms of how to keep things moving in the midst of it all.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I saw some gratitude too for Indiana Humanities for their novel conversations kits. That's awesome too.
Yeah.
Great. Stephanie Asbury, it looks like you had a good conversation there. Do you want to unmute and talk a little bit more about that discussion?
Yeah, so we talked about just, all of the inspiring stories about how people pulled together despite the obstacles to make resource sharing happen. One of my favorite items from our discussion was Janet. Janet, I think your last name was Henson, but I can't be positive, but talked about a book club going they went to Facebook events, which I found really interesting. And then one of the other things that we appreciated in particular was one of our vendors offering an online database access remotely where we currently only had an in-house subscription. So that was really helpful.
Great. Yeah, it was really nice that a lot of the database vendors were able to give more open access, at least for a short period of time. That's been awesome.
See some appreciation for Info Express. Thanks for that.
Yeah, lots of comments about how people have been more understanding, more flexible. That's awesome to see. It's great when the community pulls together with all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Pam?
Yeah.
This is Nick. Can I mention something?
Yes,
we had a really interesting opportunity. One of our members of our breakout group is a published author as well as a librarian, and was able to talk about what it's like to be an author and want to get those royalties in spite of her interest, and our interest is libraries of getting materials around. Her dad, it turns out, was a patent attorney or copyright attorney for McGraw-Hill, and so they have had some very interesting conversations about sharing of e-resources over the years, and more particularly recently. And then we also heard from another member of our Breakout who works in a small library and who serves folks who don't have a lot of e-resources, sometimes no e-resources at home. Perhaps their cell phone is their e-resource for everything. And so their library, even though they don't have a big budget, is very important and is introducing them. Someone else mentioned this earlier, is introducing them to e-resources. As Robert was talking about his mother-in-law, I think, that we're making strides in perhaps pushing out the idea that e-resources are there and are available, and public libraries, academic libraries, special schools, we can all become involved in just teaching each other and our patrons how to use it.
Yeah, sharing the best way to get the word out and how to, share your populations and get that word out too. That's great. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. I think in the interest of time, it may be good to move on to our next conversation. We've had a lot of good comments about what's been happening, and next we get to move into the future. Let me see. I always have to figure out where my things are. It was hiding under other stuff on my screen. All right, for our breakout number 2, we're going to mix up the groups a little bit, so you'll probably be talking with some different people. For number 2, we're moving into the future. So imagine tonight that you fall into a deep sleep, and when you wake up, it's 2 years from now. You take a look around at this familiar but slightly changed world. Libraries have successfully implemented many different ideas, programs, and have new and innovative ways of serving the public. Resource sharing has been a big part of that. Resource sharing is now stronger and better than ever. What does resource sharing look like in this future? What are people experiencing, both library staff and the public? What has contributed to the strength of the program? What changes or experiences from the time of the pandemic have made resource sharing more successful? And how has resource sharing shifted overall to be the strong program it is in this future? I'll leave this here for a couple seconds. You can take a screenshot if you like. I think Jen's or Pam is gonna pop that in the chat.
Yep, the question and scenarios in chat already. So
awesome. And again, we're gonna be mixing you up a little bit, so take a moment to just quickly reintroduce yourselves and choose a recorder or reporter to take notes on this section as well, and share your highlights in chat once we come back. And for this one, we're going to take a little bit longer, I think 25 minutes, to have a deeper conversation about the future and where we could go.
Okay, if everybody's ready, I'll go ahead and move you to your breakout rooms.
So looks like everyone's coming back in. If you were the recorder for your group, go ahead and start typing into chat some of the highlights from your discussion. All right, looks like we should have everybody back. So again, if you're the recorder and reporter for your group, go ahead and start typing into chat there. Give everyone a few seconds to get stuff in, and then we'll start looking through here. Wow, there's a lot in here. You guys are having good discussions. It's so awesome. Robert Rothmeyer, looks like you were the first one I saw. Do you want to unmute and talk a little bit more?
I have to rejoice at the last part of the conversation because it's something I've experienced with the annual resource sharing committee, and it's something that I really enjoyed about the MCLS Board of Directors. And that was the fact that you have librarians serving all types of libraries in the room together. And these sessions this morning have allowed that. Large academics, large publics, small publics, special libraries, being able to talk with one another about things that we value and care about. And so that has been, that was just wonderful to have that reflected. There was a lot of conversation around how CERCS is allowed publics to discover academic resources and academic resources to make available their things to the publics. And we think about community colleges, and we talked a lot about the IB Techs being scattered throughout the states and how they have resources that are kind of unique and are valuable to the citizens of their communities, even as the public libraries are valuable to the citizens of the community. So there was a lot of positive about CERCS and being able to keep something like that going. There was the ongoing conversation we're all having about how do we loan ebooks and what does that look like? Whether the public library has been doing that with Overdrive. There's other models being looked at like Occam's razor with the academic libraries. You know, what that, will the pandemic, will one of the benefits of the pandemic actually be that conversation that allows more lending of at least chapters of ebooks? So that there was a lot of conversation about that. Also more open resources, so the very expensive journals and those sorts of things where you have the final thing shared in the academic settings, having the ability to get at the thing just before that really has all the content, and then allowing that stuff to be footnoted. So just that more openness to the availability of resources. I'm looking down the long list here. I put it all in the chat so you'll be able to see it. I guess it wouldn't be a session I'm in without, you know, continuing to advocate, as Jake knows so much, about the ability to take CERCS as a stepping stone to do what MCLS has been doing in Michigan, and to think about how do we have one place where we could go and discover here in the region the resources available across all library types, and then be able to push one button and be able to deliver that to our libraries, and then to have a connected courier system where we could deliver those items if they're physical items. So that was another part of the conversation. And then the availability to loan more than just books, but that idea of, you know, continuing to build on the success of loaning the books to the DVDs and CDs and some of those materials that people are still using, because the streaming services can be really expensive. So I think that's a good taste of what's in the chat there.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, Robert. Yeah, and I love that you pointed out that these discussions get to bring all of us together. I think that's the beauty of it. That's why I love having discussions like this too. That's a really great discussion. Thank you. Allison Davis, looks like you put some stuff in there, and you were talking a little bit about streaming digital media availability. Do you want to unmute and talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, and this seems to be an issue not just for academic libraries, but public libraries as well. And I would assume school libraries and any other kind of library where patrons want streaming video, is that we have a really hard time right now trying to get everything that our patrons need. You know, for example, at Purdue, we have a lot of instructors who want to show, you know, commercially available films that are only streaming on Netflix or Amazon, or their students can only rent them via iTunes. And you know, people just don't understand why libraries can't purchase those. And we would love to see that changed. We also talked a little bit about siloed systems become more interoperable. And I've seen a lot of people talk a little bit about that, you know, just pressing one button and getting access to, you know, whoever you're sharing with, and patrons could just request them with one button. That'd be great. Not have to use 2 or 3 different systems. And then we also talked about reducing geographical and digital borders for collections. One of the examples is the Big Ten Big Collection. We also talked about controlled digital lending. So just trying to knock down those fences for digital materials. Was it? Oh now I can't remember your name. I apologize. Talked a little bit about public library issues where, if a patron moves just down the street a little bit, they're in an entirely new neighborhood where they no longer have access to the overdrive ebooks. They have to completely switch systems, and that seems to be a little ridiculous. So that's what we talked about.
Great discussion. Thank you, Allison. Appreciate that. Okay, Karen Burton, looks like from room 2. Are you able to unmute and talk a little bit more about what you were saying? I'm interested in what you had in there, the controlled digital lending and public domain. Yeah.
Yes. I'm not as versed in that as a couple of the other participants, but that's something that we first started talking about, was the controlled digital lending taken off, just to make it a little bit easier and more accessible. Another thing that we talked about was the increase of variety of format for those. So like large print, and a lot of the people who were speaking better on that were from like more academic libraries, but I think that kind of goes to serve all of us, even in the public libraries, is having like large prints, dyslexia formats available for those e-resources. And then we talked a lot about those older items, the more hard to find rare items, hoping that the public domain kind of gets moved forward so that a lot of those can get digitized.
Mhm.
And then that way we can offer it in that format instead of having these old and fragile items being lent out and taking the chance of something happening to those.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Kara.
Mhm.
Great. Mike Paxton from room 14. Are you able to unmute and share a little bit?
Yeah, we talked a lot about sort of what's already been mentioned with the user experience, having like that sort of systems and network interoperability so that the patron doesn't have to go and search Evergreen and then Overdrive and then Circs and bounce around and around until they find a copy. So both the improving the user experience and making that more simplified, and then also for staff on the back end so that we don't have to do so much like manual connecting strings between 2 different systems to get them to talk to each other. A lot with the digital lending, the same things with ebook sharing, streaming and licenses. One thing we said was that there's an opportunity for accessibility there, where so much digital lending is based on PDFs, which is a larger file and essentially an image. Whereas like if I get something from Overdrive, it's a text file that I can change the size on and everything just reflows to my device. I'm not trying to pinch and zoom and scan on every page. So I think that's an opportunity for like the digital articles and book chapters to improve. And we talked a little bit about things that we started during the pandemic that we want to keep going in a slightly different form. I think it was Syracuse Public Library has been doing curbside pickup and is pivoting to pick up lockers as a way to keep that service going, but without having to keep staff devoted to running back and forth out to the cars.
Yeah, great. Love that. That's some great ideas. Thank you, Mike. I loved your locker thing that you were talking about in there too. That's awesome. All right, let's see. Christine Bellicis, how can I resist? You said we came up with some cool ideas. So do you want to unmute and talk about some of your cool ideas?
Yes, I only have phone access, no camera, so you can see a picture of our beautiful library there. We kind of started from near future to future. So we talked about digital or scanning materials so that we didn't have to rely so much on physical materials, and we talked about the copyright implications of that, but an easier way to scan books and a faster way to scan books so that we could just kind of shoot materials over to other libraries. We all agreed that we need more digital access for our patrons. Hotspots are extremely well used and very much in demand. And so we found that to be a priority for the future, is make sure that everyone has better internet access, and even in the rural communities, and just has internet access. We talked about there will probably be more digital demonstrations for new technologies. I think it was Jake that said they have now at the State Library virtual reality kits and robotic kits, and there'll be more of those. And we talked about right now, maybe Info Express could follow Amazon's model and provide delivery vans for their drivers. It might help with the turnover, and I'm just going to call her Newcastle. Newcastle said sometimes she's had delivery drivers with really small cars that can't fit in all of their deliveries. So those are some of the things, providing wireless capabilities to a wider space than just our parking lots. And I too want to say I love that idea of pickup lockers.
Yeah, great. Great. Thanks, Christine. I love how you guys approach the near future to the further future. So that's awesome. Some ideas with that. And one more I want to call out here. I think we've got just a time for one more. Matthew Shaw, I saw a comment on here. You talked about communication and sharing expertise as with people between libraries. Are you able to unmute and talk about that a little bit with your discussion?
Sure. And I would mention that I think this is something that really has been explored in Indiana through the Private Academic Library Network of Indiana. Kirsten Leonard has provided some real leadership in this area in developing deep collaboration models. But I think those could be extended, and as we see across the state, and I imagine this is perhaps also true for public libraries, but we're not seeing positions restored all the time, and sometimes that means a gap in expertise. And it seems to me that there are ways in which we can be more supportive of one another in ways that perhaps aren't operational, but maybe consultative, and providing some guidance, some professional development, some reskilling opportunities together, and just creating a more cohesive network of professionals and classified staff that really know how to do the work, and help advance the work of libraries that have experienced skill loss due to retirements and attrition, or cuts, and givebacks. I mean, we've actually had academic libraries in the state who have lost a significant percentage of their workforce due to budget cuts, and I can't imagine that was before COVID. So I just think that leveraging the collective skills. Libraries are uniquely positioned to be deep collaborators, and we already have that ethos built into our system, I think. So it was just something we discussed.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Matthew. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. That's some really rich information that came from your discussion. So we really appreciate all of that you're able to share with all of us. So I'm going to hand it back over to Nicole. We're going to go into a final reflection question as we get close to wrapping up.
Yeah, let me find. All right. Yeah, so our final question is a reflection question. We're not going to go out into the breakout rooms for this. We're just going to think about it a little bit and type an answer in the chat if you feel so inspired. So thinking about all that was shared today, what is one thing that we can do to make this future a reality? What is one small step that you can commit to achieve that reality? We're not going to call anyone out or anything like that. You can just think about it and post in the chat. All right, it looks like everyone has had a chance to kind of reflect and think about that a little bit. I see lots of good ideas, lots of hope for the future of resource sharing, and lots of people talking about how good it is to get together and communicate. And I'm really glad you all could join us, and so many of you have stuck around through the whole conversation. So thank you. My commitment is to share this chat out with everybody and the recording of this, just so that we can have a record of these ideas. And I think our other commitment following this is trying to synthesize these ideas and figure out what next things we could do at the state library. And maybe more practically speaking, we want to host another conference in the fall, either virtual or in person, we don't know, kind of get back to the Discovery to Deliveries events that we used to host in person. And I think Jen has a little poll because we're trying to figure out what everybody's comfortable and up for, if we want to see each other in person again, or we're comfortable doing that. I know we probably want to, or if people are still more happy online. We have not made any plans yet for this, but we want to try to gather ideas from this session to maybe tap some people to present on what's been working for their libraries, or find people who can speak into some of the things that we are wanting to know more about.
Nicole, this is Nick. I think we have a plethora of great ideas from today's session that we can explore and see what will work well for our D2D session.
Absolutely. And it looks like we have a strong preference still for a virtual session, so we will see how that shakes out. So yeah, that's kind of our next steps, I think, is just kind of marinate in this information a little bit and see what we might like to pursue for the near-term future and the far-term future, as someone just put it so nicely. And the other piece of housekeeping that we had for today is a link to, for those of you who need LEUs for this session, we have a link to submit your information to request an LEU certificate. It's not as easy for us to share the document out via Zoom meetings. So if you let us know, we'll get you a certificate shortly. And I think that was really all the content that we had. So thanks everybody for participating, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.